Welcome to another episode of the Sunday Funday podcast, the hangover that never sounded so good. I'm your host, Akil Patterson, and as I've always promised, I wanted you to get to know some of my co-hosts or recurring friends. And this week, I'm bringing in the OG, not like the original gangster. No, this is the original Oregonian, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Blake Long. What's going on, Blake?
How's it going, Akil? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, brother. So I say you're the original OG because of your family history. And look, you may not find it as cool as the rest of us do, but it's pretty cool that you get to tell people, oh, yeah, my great-grandfather was the first governor and the first mayor. He was the first mayor of Portland and the first governor of Oregon. I mean, that's still pretty cool history.
It definitely was something growing up that my mom always instilled in me, and we talked a lot about. And there's the Penoyer Street just down the road. Mm. It's really tiny, but then we have like the governor's house, and there's a big plaque of his head on the front of it. So they actually moved it just over by Geldwin Field, or whatever it's called.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's where the Timbers play. So
I'm not from Portland, so I don't whatever you wanted to call it is up to you guys.
So yeah, he's my great grandfather, and there's actually a scholarship fund set up for him at Harvard. He went to Harvard Law School and was living in Boston, decided to come over here and kind of start up Portland, Oregon. So
yeah, there's some history to that. Yeah. So there's a book that I was reading, and it's called Wicked Portland. Uh-huh. And it actually talks about him in not so flattering terms.
Yeah, probably.
It talks about how he like came here and he was like, I think he like ran a bar or something. Like he had like a bar or a restaurant or something that he ran. And when people didn't pay, folks would like lose fingers, and it was not flattering. But again, it's history.
Yeah. So back in the day, I think like early 1900s, probably 1800s.
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, like people were still using like beaver pelts as currency.
Yeah.
So you're not really, you're like, yeah, he sucked. I'm like, did he though? I mean, at the time, that's progress.
Yeah.
And that's what we always have to remember is like, yeah, for the period, that was like the end thing. Like, hey, if someone doesn't pay because there's no cops, you just have to deal with it yourself.
Yeah.
And then also the sheriff was like appointed.
Yeah. And remember that street I lived on Hooker Street?
Yeah.
So my grandma has told me the brief history about it, and apparently a little house on that street, which she thinks was the house I was living in, renting out of, was the Hooker house where the Portland police all kind of ran like a whorehouse.
Oh. Yeah. So there's a madam's house.
Yeah, that's how I got the name Hooker Street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did not know that until I moved there. I'm like, that is pretty interesting. I hope this is not my house.
I mean,
I was just worried about ghosts. I'm a believer in ghosts, so I didn't want to get haunted.
But don't the ghosts have to die in the house in order for you to be?
Apparently, in this book that she read, some pretty awful things went down in that house. So,
oh man. Well, okay, all right. Well, so that's a pretty cool history. Beyond you and just your family legacy, like you've been, and when I got here to the Northwest, I started coaching and stuff, and you've been a pretty consistent fixture in my life because I'm like, he's a good young guy. He's out there, outgoing, knows everybody. But what was it like growing up in such a white fucking community? I'm sorry, like I grew up in a world where most of my friends didn't look like me, but they all looked like me. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like they all had the same complexion or skin tone, but it was like, hey, there was some light skin, there were some white kids, there were some Native Americans, there were some true like from India Indians, there were Asian kids, like there was all big diverse. But when I go over to the school that you went over to, I'm like, oh my God, that the idea of diversity is women led, but everyone here is a woman. It's so awkward what they think of is diverse or equity.
Yeah, it's definitely super interesting to know. Like, I did grow up in such a white community, but the weird part was that my dad and my mom got divorced when I was about 2, 3 years old. So I grew up in Park Rose.
Oh, that's the most diverse district
Yeah.
in the city.
Exactly. So I grew up in Park Rose. That was where my first house was and everything. My mom moved out to Forest Heights.
Okay.
So I started seeing that, but my dad lived out in Park Rose for probably the first 10 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So my neighborhood friends in Park Rose were like black kids, Asian kids, like
Yeah.
a very diverse group of people. And then I would come over on the other weekends, and then my neighbors are all these white kids that have all this money to spend, get whatever they want. And I'm like, these are two completely different worlds. And we'd go play like an inner city school or something on the east side. I had friends on the team, and everyone's like, how do you know them? How do you know them? I'm like, I grew up with him since probably I was like 5 years old. Used to go hang out, trade Pokemon cards, all that weird kind of stuff. And everyone's like, oh my God, you know a black person. Oh my God. I'm like, okay, this is
awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's sitting around with your friends and trying to explain to them why do you know someone black? It's well, that's not someone black. That's just Todd.
Yeah.
it's Todd. It's when you explain to people, it's like I don't see race, but I do see race.
Yeah.
Because you're a person that's like, well, of course I see race. It's like I'm not stupid. It's like I don't think racially. I just okay, they're not the same color as everyone else. So
Yeah.
okay.
And like I grew up going to Lloyd Center and like hanging out at Lloyd Center here and there. I was never afraid. I had friends that'd be like, oh my God, I think that guy has a gun, and I'm super scared. I'm like, dude,
Everyone's got a gun.
yeah,
in
nobody
Oregon.
cares. You're chilling. They're not going to do anything to you. Just don't act all weird. I had a buddy that I took him to the Hollywood Bowl, which is where that Target is now over there. And he used to always be like, oh, I'm such a gangster. Like, I'm going to drive an Escalade. He used to listen. I don't know. He was just this goofball, came from this super wealthy family here in Oregon, and he always wanted to wear like do-rags and thought he was like that guy, always wearing like the really baggy like jerseys.
So it's like Pablo.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll never forget, I'm like, yeah, we can go bowling. He comes over to my dad's house, and the first thing he says is like, are we going to get shot in this neighborhood? I'm like, okay, you're the first friend I've ever had come over to this house, so come on now. Like, from like the west side. And then we take him to the bowling alley, and he starts having a fit because he sees what he thinks are gangsters because they're just like walking around. I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. He starts crying, throwing this.
Was it like this when he walked in?
Yeah.
Like everyone just stopped and goes, who is that?
And we're just bowling, and he's just throwing this fit. And luckily, my mom was there, but she's having to like console him, like, it's gonna be okay, nothing's gonna happen to you. And he's just throwing this big fit. And ever since then, I just remember he would try to act gangster, and I'm just looking at him like, oh, I don't think he can do that. Not anymore. Not after what I just saw. I'm not gonna tell anyone about it, but a little awkward. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh man, I want to shift now. So childhood awkward. Moved, your parents, obviously, I come from a family where my parents have been married for over 40 years. Shout out mom and dad, over 40 years marriage. And so like, I never like had the 2-parent household, like go here, go there. And our age difference is about, 14 years. So what was that like, being a 2000s kid, like, growing up because I mean you're born in the late 90s, but pretty much the early 2000s is your memory years.
Yeah.
What's it like having to like be one of those kids that like grows up with like computer and technology and being in 2 different households, like trying to figure that out? Because obviously at some point your parents probably didn't talk a whole lot.
No, so one of the problems was with divorced parents was my mom, for some reason, never wanted to talk to my dad, so it was always through me, communication through me, which was really hard growing up. And I got sent to a number of therapists and whatnot because I ended up getting a little bit of anger issues from it, from having to deal with trying to understand at such a young age, at 3, like why my dad's moving out. I still remember the day, night and day. that my dad was moving out, and I'm asking him, where are you going? What are you doing? And he's packing up all of his stuff. He's like, I have to go. And I'm like, what is going on? I didn't find out till later, like the full story and all that, and like who asked for the divorce, why that went down. But it was definitely interesting to start having like 2 different holidays. And I know everyone's like, oh, I look forward to that. I love that. I'm like, dude, this sucks. Like,
yeah, it's like, isn't that a lot of pressure? Like, okay, I have an hour and 82 minutes to stand next to you guys before I have to get picked, or I have to get dropped off at a neutral location to go to the next place.
Or have somebody else come pick me up, family. And it was really, I was pretty lucky because my dad's a great guy, super outgoing, really good dude. He's been sober for 30 plus years now, so before I was even born. And luckily, him and my mom's mom, my grandma, they're still super close, always exchange gifts. My grandmas are super close. My uncle and my dad are actually
Your cool uncle.
Yeah, my cool uncle.
Yeah.
They're actually best friends.
What?
Yeah. So they
Your cool uncle and your dad are still best friends?
Yeah, they go to rock concerts together, and their age difference is like 10-something years, maybe 8 years.
Oh, so your dad was like a big bro to him anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So like my dad, when he came in, like tried helping out as much as he could, being there, and like, it's just kind of cool to like see that they still have these relationships, and like they're always asking how each other's are doing, and that honestly made it a little bit easier because like I could hang, like my dad and my uncle were roommates for a little bit, so like I'm going from my mom's house to go and see my uncle Robert and my dad at my dad's house. I'm like, this is freaking crazy.
Well, but you know what? It sounds like you had good male mentors, and I think that's something that for people who are going to listen and watch the podcast, that's something that we're supposed to be doing here at SFD. Is like we're supposed to give men a place to have an opportunity to talk to one another and have dialogue. But what I noticed is like male mentors are few and far between.
Yeah,
like real male mentors, not like some comical characters like Andrew Tate who are like, go to the gym, go to the gym, and then hit girls, but go to the gym, and everyone's like, oh, but he said go to the gym.
Yeah,
I'm like, so.
And I think that like so many kids today struggle with, they look at these people like Jake Paul, or like, that's who I want to be. That's who I want to be. Luckily, because of like, I was a good athlete growing up.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that I had parents and like other male figures in my life coming up to me, like wanting to help me out. Like I struggled in school a lot, mainly because I think because of my parents getting the divorce, and also like I always had something I had to go be doing. Like my mom was taking me to a friend's house for dinner, or I have to go do this. I have practice. I could never make it anywhere. And it was like, I don't know. I'm an only child, and a lot of people are like, you're an only child, but it was so different for me because I grew up around all these adults and all these people that like I knew how to interact with adults, and like that's what's made me successful today, especially. And I'm super lucky to have all these mentors, male mentors, female mentors that were kind of pushing me to, dude, bring the best out of yourself. And thank God I didn't look up to some YouTube star that I had no actual connection with. And especially even you, like you've been a huge part of my life in the last 2 years.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I appreciate you. So I appreciate everything you've done for me and helped me, and it's just been great.
Yeah. I just feel like, when I look around and I see young people out here, and like, look, the COVID did a number on kids.
Yeah.
Like it did a number on folks. Like they don't know how to talk to each other. Like everything is done through text or like Instagram. And I used to be one of those people that's like, people used to be like, oh, she's bullying me online. And I used to be like, well, don't fucking go online.
Yeah.
That used to be my response. But now as I'm older, I'm like, they have no choice but to go online because that's where everyone's at. It's like if everyone back in the day went to the mall, you went to the mall.
Yeah. And like bringing back to that first point that you made about like growing up with technology.
Yeah.
I can tell you I was probably a part of the first generation where texting relationships were a thing.
Yeah, I still don't know how to do that very well.
Okay. No. So a texting relationship, it started because we all started getting cell phones in middle school, and everyone's like, you have a cell phone?
Yeah, because your parents need to get in contact with you if something happens.
And I had divorced parents too.
Well, so that's why.
Like, I got my first phone in like 4th grade, didn't use it until 6th grade.
But they were just having it just so you knew.
Yeah, exactly. But a texting relationship, So you see a girl you might have a crush on or significant other, or whatever you want at school. And the way it was, I had a crush on this one girl. I'll never forget it. And I asked her to be my girlfriend at school, and it was so awkward and hard for me. And we would maybe say about 5 words to each other at school, but then when we're not with each other, we're texting 24/7 saying, "Oh, what's going on? Like, how's class? Do you want to meet up for a kiss later or a hug?" And then, like, you don't talk at all. I had a 6-month relationship with this girl that I maybe said 500 words to. And it was a texting relationship. And that was so fucking weird because I don't even know how to describe that.
Wow. I am actually flabbergasted at this point. You had a relationship in which you text message someone almost exclusively?
Yeah. And you were boyfriend and girlfriend at school. All your friends and their friends knew. Everyone's like, oh my God, like you talk through their friends, especially if you were kind of socially awkward. And I remember we didn't say anything to each other as we're waiting for the bus. But we waited outside because our friends were like, you guys are going to kiss today. You guys are going to kiss. And it was so weird. And I remember everyone waited outside, a huge group of people.
Oh yeah, well, so that never changes. Okay,
yeah,
so that's
still
changed. Consistent.
And then we kissed, and we're just like, okay, have a nice bus ride. And then we texted. That was such an amazing kiss. I've never felt anything like that. It was so weird. It was so weird.
Okay, so I'm feeling awkward. Okay, so
It is awkward. It's very awkward.
Here's how 90s and 80s kids would explain this to you. Instead of being texting, we had notes. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes, like, so I don't know if you guys have this here. We had periods, not like blocks or 0 period. It was like,
yeah, we had periods.
We period like period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
yeah.
And then it flips if you have like they're trying to get all your classes in. They're like 45-minute classes, and then when we got to high school, it was 90 minutes. But in middle school, 45 minutes.
Yeah, you get you get 7 periods in middle school, and then high school you get 8 periods, but
they're 4 and 4.
Is
yeah,
8, and then it's 4, 4, A,
yeah.
B.
Yeah.
A,
Okay.
B.
So we did have the same. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. But what you also had to do was, because we had real lockers. These kids today don't have real lockers. FYI, America, make lockers great again. I mean, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with these kids, but give a kid a locker so he can put his crap in, so he can meet with his buddies, so he can have the cool A hall. And so we had A hall, B hall. Like if you had the cool locker, you had that right hallway. You had the right locker. No, your locker room, your locker assignment was like a zip code.
Yep.
It's like living in the West Hills. Like it's like living in Beverly Hills. It's like living in like the penthouse suite. If you have the right locker and you have the right locker number, you are in the in crowd.
Yeah, so at the old Lincoln, I had the locker that was always near the front of the hallways. So everybody was always coming up to my locker and hanging out.
Oh, it was in front of the T?
Right, yeah, right there in front. Except for freshman year, but sophomore, junior, and senior year, I had the locker right in front, and everybody's hanging out in my locker, even if I'm not there.
Yeah,
I didn't. I don't know why. I always knew the lady that was in charge of scheduling lockers. I used to go hang out with her nephew, and I was.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Join us for another Sunday Funday podcast right here. And guess what? Like, follow, and subscribe. Join us every week as we talk about things that men love. But remember, it's Sunday. Get the heck out of the house. Go have some fun.